Well, the Tigers play in quite frankly a really odd baseball game. They lose the series to the Nationals. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about what they need to address to not have that happen this weekend. That and more all today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Friday, July 4th, 2025. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off of your first purchase. Happy 4th, everybody. Hopefully we can send you off into the holiday weekend with a solid show for you today. Unfortunately, the Tigers are not going to send you into the holiday with a great performance or a great ball game. That is a wild and weird 11-7 loss in the series finale against the Washington Nationals on Thursday night. Their record is now 54-34, and obviously that is a series loss to Washington. So my first thought is way more than one thought. Okay, I have a lot of first thoughts surrounding this baseball game. I have a sliver of appreciation for losses when your baseball team is 20 games over 500, because it highlights areas of weakness, right? It highlights what they need to get better at and what they need to acquire to continue improving and not become complacent or not fall, backwards, et cetera, et cetera. But it gives you, breathing room to figure out those said weaknesses. It really, shines a light, I think, on what the team needs to buy at the deadline. Obviously, we say that as we are now in early July. This team really needs improvements on the mound. And I think that this performance on Thursday really highlighted the need for starting pitching. Your rotation, as it stands right now, is Skubal. Obviously, you're good there. Mize has been solid, has also been hurt at times this season, has been hurt, I think, in every year of his career. Maybe 2021. He had innings restrictions, but I don't know if he got hurt that season. Outside of that, spent a long amount of time, 60-day injured list last season, has already been on the 10-day once this season. Flaherty has been healthy, but has an ERA that's pushing 5. And Reese Olson hopefully starts this weekend for the first time in over a month. And then after, Job out for the season, obviously, after that, you don't really have anybody. It's been Sawyer Gipson-Long, Cater Montero, Dietrich Enns in this one. It's been kind of a revolving door. Enns, SGL, and Montero just those guys can't be certainly not middle of the rotation guys on your team if you want to keep growing and improving. But I think you could argue, especially in Enns' case, that it probably shouldn't be a number 5 in your rotation again, every 5 days. Fine depth piece. He got rocked today. I don't despise him because it is what it is. He is a solid organizational depth piece to have that can give you a solid outing once in a blue moon, like he did in the first appearance that he had for the Tigers. Gipson-Long coming back from Tommy John, Montero, inconsistencies. We've talked about him a lot. You need starting pitching help. You need it. And I think that this game beautifully highlighted that need. You also, I think, pretty apparently need bullpen help. And this game, Thursday, wasn't the poster child for that. This wasn't the we have a lead bullpen lineup, right? Honestly, for a lot of it, it was the we're getting blown out bullpen. So almost the exact opposite. But how many guys in the bullpen right now do you trust fully in like a late game, relatively high leverage situation? For me, it's about 3, and none of them are lefties, which is a problem. Chase Lee, Will Vest, and yes, still Tommy Kahnle. He had one terrible outing earlier this week. Obviously, he had a sub-2 ERA going into that performance. So you're going to need more than 3 reliable relievers going into the postseason. And like, that's not to say it's only going to be 3. Tyler Holton might turn it around. We saw at points, honestly, from not everybody, but from a lot of the bullpen at points this year, Brant Herter was phenomenal the first month and a half of the season. Like, that's not to say that the answers aren't also part of your current roster, but you need some more reassurance. You got to raise the floor a little bit on the mound. And I think that is something that this game did a great job illustrating. Also, maybe a reminder that like third base wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. That's not like an overreaction to one game either, I promise. Like Zach McKinstry has been phenomenal and is going to get like all-star consideration. He's been absolutely incredible. This was just one bad day in the field. He still got on base. I think McKinstry should play almost every day. He's had a sensational year, but I think he's also most valuable as a super utility type of player. So all of that is to say, this sucked. That was bad baseball. I mean, it kind of got close there at one point late, but it was very sloppy baseball. And that's a really disappointing series loss on the road to a much inferior opponent that you probably shouldn't have lost to. But the team is still 20 games over 500. It's not even the All-Star break yet. The season isn't over. There's still a ton of baseball left to be played. Let's just talk about what the team needs to do to not have performances like that, preferably ever again, but that's probably unrealistic on a consistent basis. Let's talk about what needs to change. So again, what went wrong? Dietrich Enns is going to be probably the focal point of this conversation. 4 innings, 8 hits, 8 runs, 7 of them earned, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts, and 2 home runs against. His ERA is, for whatever it's worth to you, is now 7, but that's in 2 outings. I don't really have too much to say, to be honest. The fastballs that he threw were right down the middle. Like, honestly, there was, I think, a 3-batter stretch where he was consistently kind of hitting that up and in spot that he was trying to hit all game. And you look at the location of the hits that the Nationals had, it is a lot of 92 down the middle. And then the secondary stuff was like way out of the zone. And like the fastballs that he did throw up successfully, I actually still really liked. I talked about that in his first outing, but nothing else was really doing too much. This was an awesome story. It still is an awesome story. It's a story of, persistence and determination, et cetera, et cetera. And honestly, I get the decision to use him again as well. Like, he had a good first outing, and the Nationals, very notably, all of their best hitters are lefties. I think it makes a lot of sense. I understand the matchup decision, but I can't imagine that he sticks around too much longer after this outing either, especially if Reese Olson is back this weekend. So tip of the cap. Thank you for the first start. I think that this outing just kind of caught up with him. All the respect in the world. It's just, again, solid organizational depth to have. Not a guy that you're going to lean on every 5th day over the course of a season either, though. Let's talk about the defense. That also was a complete and utter train wreck in this ball game, doing the pitching and Dietrich Enns no favors. We'll talk about that right after this. First, though, got to talk to you all about our friends over at Game Time. We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you have been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with stress of ticket shopping. That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with killer last-minute deals through Game Time. If you're tired of the endless scrolling trying to find the best deal, well, Game Time zone deals pick the best seats in your section for you. If you've ever wondered what your view will look like while you're buying tickets, well, Game Time has you covered there as well. The app shows you a panoramic seat view, so there's no surprises. With Game Time, the price you see is the price you pay, and there's no hidden fees. If you're worried about what happens after, like your plans change or something like that, the Game Time guarantee has your back with cancellation protection and more. So take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2 of Locked On Tigers. I appreciate you all for tuning in, as always, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. And we will, of course, be back on Monday after the holiday weekend, recapping this upcoming weekend series against the Cleveland Guardians in Cleveland. We'll preview that series at the end of today's show. Let's keep talking about what went wrong in this 11-7 loss to the Nats. The defense was an atrocity. And really, you could focus it on just the defense in the fifth inning. Now, like, Glaber probably should have had a ball a little bit later in the game. There certainly were other defensive moments that I was frustrated with. However, I think as a whole, if you eliminate the fifth inning monstrosity that was the Tigers defense, this is a much different ballgame. In fact, 7 earned runs at the time that the Tigers scored their 7th run. So it would have been tied late had they not punted the ball all over the infield. Now, look, there's also a difference between like being frustrated in the moment and also realizing that like this probably isn't an issue that's going to persist. That they had 3 errors and a passed ball in 1 inning. Baez has been really good defensively this year, obviously at multiple positions, but his entire career has been good with the glove. Throwing errors, different story, but been good with the glove. McKinstry has been great defensively his entire Tigers tenure. Dylan Dingler has been fantastic behind the plate. They were just all bad defensively at the exact same time. And that's just going to happen at least once over 162. So it was brutal to watch, and it sucked, but it hasn't been a problem all year. The Tigers have been really solid defensively and grayed out metrically as a really solid defensive team. But it certainly was a problem on Thursday, and there's an argument that it cost them the game. You know, butterfly effect and all that. The bullpen's probably utilized differently, etc. The offense against Jake Irvin after the first inning, I think, went catastrophically wrong. This is the most frustrating part of the entire game for me. Because Enns is Dietrich Enns, love him to death. He's in his 30s and hasn't pitched in Major League Baseball in like 4 years. The defense has been solid all season. This is annoying because they worked the starting pitcher for over 30 pitches in the first inning and scored 3 runs. Obviously, the offense doesn't control what the pitching does, so they cough up the lead, and then the offense just completely rolls over and dies. They scored 3 runs in the first inning, and again, over 30 pitches of pitches thrown for Irvin, and he still recorded a quality start. He still had 6 innings, completed 6, and those were the only 3 runs he gave up. They just completely folded offensively, defensively, and on the mound after that hour-long first inning. Now, to their credit, they did hit the Nationals bullpen later. So what went right in this ball game? We'll start with some individuals. Actually, no, we're already rolling and talking about it. Let's talk about the bounce back a little bit. That's obviously great to see. The Nationals have maybe the worst bullpen in baseball. It's either them or the Athletics. They just fight back and forth every night on which team has the highest bullpen ERA in baseball. So it's great, but again, this game is substantially different if, and that's a slippery slope. You can't play the if game because then, you could just convince yourself that your team should go undefeated every year. But like between unearned runs and then just completely folding against the guy they were all over in the first inning leads them to here. Too little, too late is, I guess, what I'm trying to say. They did hit a bad bullpen, and I appreciate that. And that is something that I just appreciate about this team in general. And they haven't had as many of those like comeback wins lately, but mostly because they've just won a lot of games this year. But I never have a worry that they are going to continue trying to apply pressure and put together competitive at bats no matter what the score is late in the ball game. It's the innings like 2 through 6 that sometimes can get away from them. They're a great first inning team. Anyway, I digress. I'm probably going way just like off the rails and in a million different directions here. But I am thankful that I never really have to worry about the Tigers, are they just going to completely just like throw in the towel and not try and come back? Like, no, they're always going to put together good at bats and play till the final out, which is something AJ has preached all along and is something that I think the team proves, in these types of games as well. Specifically, Spencer Torkelson. The home run he had was legitimately one of the best at-bats I've ever seen from him. And that's not an exaggeration or a hyperbole. That is legitimate. That is an unbelievable AB. The Tigers posted the whole at-bat. It was like 3.5 minutes long. Crazy what the pitch clock does, right? Like that at-bat, 5 years ago is, 10 minutes long. So, just an unbelievable display of staying alive, also not expanding the zone, and also turning and burning on the pitch that you do get that you want to hit. It was beautiful approach, beautiful defensive swings to keep the count going as well on the pitches that like he adjusted. It was a full count there. At one point there was a lot of fastballs. Then there was this curveball low and away. He's clearly sitting fastball and adjusts mid-swing to just get a piece of the wood on the ball to extend the AB. And so I give him a ton of credit. And he's been hitting. His stats over the last couple of weeks are a lot better. I know people freaked out there at one point in June because he had a couple weeks stretch that was rough. Well, now the last 15 games, he's back to, an OPS in the mid 800s. So good to see there. Colt Keith on base few times in this ball game. Obviously does not come through in the big moment, quote unquote. They're late, had a chance to maybe do some damage and make it a one-run game, or he was the tying run, and isn't able to come through, which is obviously frustrating, but still on base a couple of times, still an OPS over 750. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Gleyber Torres on base 3 times in this ball game, including an RBI. We talked about kind of the mishap defensively, but just continues to prove why he deserves to be the starting second baseman in the All-Star game. Awesome to see. Again, this is a frustrating loss, and they kind of, it always sucks when like they get your hopes up and then they kind of take it away again. That's obviously always a little frustrating, but I appreciate the fact that it kind of highlighted, gave us a reality check, highlighted what the team needs to improve on in July and what the team needs to add at the deadline, and also gave them a chance to, again, like kind of come back and still fight in this ball game. Let's talk stuff, okay? We'll do that right after this. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in as always. So I want to talk about the bullpen deployment. That I do not disagree with AJ Hinch very often at all. I think he's the best manager in baseball. I think he's an absolute genius, and he's always 2-3 steps ahead of everybody. The one thing that frustrated me in this ball game was the usage of Will Vest. You have Hernandez out there who's clearly struggling and laboring a little bit. He's thrown dang near 50 pitches, which I'm not sure when the last time he's done that is. But there is a point in this game where it is the bottom of the 8th inning and Hernandez goes back out there, which is fine. It's a 2-run ball game. You have half an inning left. For as bad as the Nationals bullpen has been, the back end guys still usually get the job done. However you want to play it. If you want to look around and go, you know what, we need to save the bullpen for Cleveland. Sorry, Hernandez, you're just going to have to go out there and wear it. Then do that. But you got to draw a line in the sand. Because then Will Vest gets used, and then it stops at a 4-run game. And then, the Tigers obviously in the 9th inning. Now, the Tigers don't score in the 9th, so, take that with however much of a grain of salt as you'd like. But butterfly effect, all that, whatever. I think, for me, just use Vest off rip. If you're comfortable using him, then just use him. What's the difference between a 2 and 4 run game and don't say 2 runs? What's really you were just down 7 or 6 at one point. To me, you either leave Hernandez out there to dry and you just go, you got to wear it. I'm sorry. You're the reliever we got to sacrifice today. I'll buy you dinner after. Or you put Will Vest out there to start because he hasn't pitched all week. He's barely pitched the entire week. So if you're comfortable getting him usage because he hasn't pitched, then put him out there to start the 9th, keep it at a 2-run ball game and see if you can come back. I just didn't, it felt very half and half, trying to walk the line for my liking. And it's one of the very few times over the last, 4 or 5 years that I've really ever disagreed with an AJ decision. But again, either way, the Tigers didn't do anything, didn't really make any noise in the 9th inning as is. So, probably not that big of a deal. And again, kind of piggybacking off that, the Tigers needed innings from anybody, right? And that's why Enns probably even lasted 4 innings. They're coming off of a doubleheader the day before. You don't have another off day for a week. You don't have an off day until next Thursday. So you were kind of just stuck with Dietrich Enns and Bailey Horn unless the offense tied the game or took a lead. Then obviously they would have just gone to Vest. But that was kind of the situation they were in. It was okay, you guys are going to have to wear it because we can't afford to completely walk into Cleveland, a division opponent this weekend, with a completely depleted bullpen and then not even have a day off after the weekend series on Monday like we have, the last 4 Mondays in a row or whatever. So, yeah, tough. That's really kind of summarizes my thoughts. Just a bad situation all around. The rain didn't help you. With the postponement, and then you got a double header. Those are always kind of weird and frustrating and finicky to kind of navigate through. Enns isn't a permanent part of the rotation. Hopefully Olson gets back. Let's just regroup and go take a couple games in Cleveland. It's pretty much where I'm at. As far as roster moves, Bailey Horn stays. Tyler Owens optioned. We'll see what happens with that. I think that Horn, again, they were just always going to carry as many lefties as they possibly could for this series because the Nationals are so different with a lefty on the mound. So we'll see if that stays, or if maybe there's a change looming after. But Cleveland, you could probably argue that you want lefties against Cleveland as well. So we'll see. We'll see how they kind of navigate that going forward. But I didn't think Horn looked, terrible or anything. I thought he had a pretty solid outing in this one. Cleveland this weekend. Put this game behind you. Again, rain, all that. It just sucked. Gross. Can't control some of it. Can't control a lot of it. Let's go move on. Cleveland is 40-44 at the time of this recording. I'm recording this during their game, so I have no clue if they end up winning or losing. But at the time that I am speaking to you, they've lost 6 games in a row. 6. They are spiraling. They're second in the AL Central, and they're 40-44. The pitching matchups are TBD against Slade Ciccone, Mize versus Logan Allen, and Skubal against Gavin Williams. That's not a bad trio for Cleveland, to be honest with you. Gavin Williams had a solid year. Ciccone had a solid year. Logan Allen, obviously, throughout his career, has been pretty solid. So, that's not a bad trio of starting pitchers. Their bullpen has certainly not been, even close to as good as it was last year. That was always going to be difficult to do. From the Tigers' perspective, look, it's not official. And if I tell you that Reese Olson is starting game 1 and then he doesn't, you have every right and you have all permission to just be mad at me. But it kind of seems like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It's not official, but he's going to start Friday type of situation. So we'll see what happens there. But I expect him to be back this weekend, and Mize and Skubal already locked into their starts. So that leaves Friday. So hopefully that is the case. A guy that, again, as we started the show, they need starting pitching depth. They need starting pitching help really badly. And so Reese Olson couldn't be coming back from injury at a better time. Then you have Mize against Logan Allen and Skubal versus Gavin Williams on Sunday. This is a big series. You got to go take 2 of 3. And I know that saying big series when you're 20 games over and this team's 4 games under and you have a 12.5 or 13 game cushion or whatever it is, sounds kind of ridiculous. But you dropped 3 of 4 to Cleveland in Cleveland earlier, or maybe that was at home. Regardless, earlier this season, you got to go beat a team that is still, even if you're okay, the AL Central's over. Everybody in the American League outside of the White Sox and the Athletics are pretty much still, maybe the Orioles even, but everybody else is kind of still somewhat in the wild card race. And that doesn't mean obviously they're not all going to make it. The Royals are spiraling. I just told you Cleveland's lost 6 in a row, but that doesn't mean that anybody else in the AL Central is going to make it. But you got a month till the deadline, and they're not guaranteed sellers yet. You got to stomp divisional opponents while they're down. You have to kick them while they're down. It will bite you in the behind later in the season. Games in July count just as much as games in March, that count just as much as games in September, October. So I guess that's not true because in March you play spring training and in October you can play postseason. So just regular season games all count the same was my point. I was trying to get super deep on you and it didn't work. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. We will, of course, be back on Monday. After you listen to this show, go check out Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night over at the Locked On MLB YouTube channel. They go around the league and recap just the entire slate of baseball games. It is so awesome. They do it live after the final out of the final game of the evening in baseball. So go check them out. I think that's all I got. Have a great, safe, awesome weekend. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope, and I'll catch you on Monday, baby. Go Tigers.